Oh, baby. The check is in the mail, right?
All right.
A lot of dues and fees going on here. It's the new year. My name's Mary. And I am an alcoholic. That's why I'm here on New Year's Day. Um, and I qualify to speak at this meeting, having been through the steps with a Big Book Step Study sponsor. Two, actually. My first one cut me loose. And so I got another one and kept going. And Big Book Step Study, and I have made some amends with a Big Book Step Study sponsor and meetings like this, not this meeting in particular, because it's my first time here. It's a new meeting. I'm excited. And people like you, including some of you people, and I have made some amends. I have more to make. And I'm living in 10, 11, and 12. And I thank you for being here on New Year's Day, and I told a couple of you before the meeting, I fell a while back and I'm getting treated, but my arm is absolutely throbbing. So I'm trying to breathe and not resist and clench. And believe me, that's what this whole damn program is about. I think about breathing and not resisting and clenching, and not having contempt prior to investigation and all that. I've had this book a long time, and like many of us, I think I read it and I think, was that always there? Was that always there? I mean, in this chapter, I feel like we see what we hear day after day, night after night at regular old AA meetings. If you go to regular old AA meetings, and I do, well, I power graded myself, yeah, but when I was little, I had to go to church and I did this thing, but I did. I mean, it's all here. All those objections are right here in this book. The religion that our families may have impressed upon us when we were young, what God would let terrible things happen to good people, what about all the wars and chicanery? I wrote chicanery down in my look it up book. All those things, like who would believe any of this stuff? Although some people do. Some people come to AA with a sort of a comfortable and consistent belief in a power greater than themselves. I did not. Next year, I will celebrate 42 years of continuous sobriety. I've been here a long time. I've been sober in Big Book Step Study, I don't know, 5 or 6 years now, although I had a brush with it in 1985. So I love this process, and I moved many years ago, and it wasn't where I was, and then it came, and I was like thrilled because I had like a 30-year gap. So I don't have any logical stream of this. If we've arrived at this point, and I'm going to dangerously tread into a couple other steps. I was one of those people who I woke up one morning with a blistering hangover. I looked in the mirror. I got out of bed, looked in the mirror, went to the bathroom to start my morning ablutions, which often included throwing up and then drinking like Hawaiian punch and taking aspirin. So I would start to get my electrolytes and sugar back. But I had a black eye. I had this big old, and I was a card-carrying feminist, and I marched on Tallahassee, Florida when they were voting on the equal right, all kinds of stuff. It's not about outside issues. It's about looking in the mirror and seeing myself with a black eye was like, oh, wait, just a minute. So this whole drinking thing wasn't going along with this because I was putting myself in some dangerous positions. What I wanted to do was say it was all his fault. I didn't know who his was. I was in a blackout. I was a blackout drinker. But clearly it wasn't me because what? But there was this brief flash that said, if you weren't blackout, wasted, drunk, you wouldn't look like this, and this wouldn't happen. I tried to call in sick to my job, and my boss wouldn't let me, took me to an open AA meeting that night. And I was working in a bar on the beach in Florida, and they took me to that meeting. I had sunglasses on because I didn't want anybody to see my face. And right through the door, they gave me this book, this very book. And so, you can take those sunglasses off. You're not the first. Okay, And I was smoking and, the half a cup of coffee, that whole thing. I'm not here to tell my story. I'm just saying I was a blackout, mobile, bedwetting, blacking out drunk. But I never tried to stop drinking. I only tried to cut down by many of the methods that we see here. I wouldn't take as much money. I would set deadlines. I'm going to leave at 9:30. But just even reading earlier on in this book, we were like, after 5 or 6, it's like, okay, I'm going to quit. But as long as I'm buzzed now, I might as well. So here's how. I've already had so many. So here's how. So I just love this book with the descriptions of drinking and what it feels like to do alcoholic drinking, to drink against my own will was what it amounted to. Because I wanted to get a buzz. I just didn't want to get like that, So I'm going to figure this out. I'm going to figure it out. That's a good program. Figure it out. So I come to AA, and the first person I hear, I'm like, oh my God. And I stopped drinking. I stopped drinking overnight after being a absolutely alcoholic drinker from my first drink, I believe. So I drank for 12 years, I guess. But the steps were for other people. I joined a group. I got a sponsor. She was pretty relaxed. I had a job in my group, but I did not. I was the prosaic steel girder, the whirling electrons, an explanation for existence that did not call for a higher power. And I was raised in a religion, nothing abusive or terrible about it. I just didn't believe it. I didn't believe any of it. And I wasn't going to say I believed in it just to make you people happy. I didn't want to be a hypocrite about the whole thing. I really didn't. I absolutely believed right from I'll tell you, I worked in that bar for a long time after I sobered up, and I watched people drink. And it was so clear to me the difference between an alcoholic and an average temperate drinker, that working in the bar was completely, every single day I'd be like, oh, that's why she does that. That's why he does that. That's why he doesn't. So and I just knew which side of the fence I was on right away. And I had people that I was kind of around. There were a lot of people in AA in Florida, this in the early 80s. And this is Miami Vice time, talk about alcoholics, and then all the other substances that are around, and truckloads of people from treatment centers getting dropped off, all this jazz. And I was like, holy shit. So people would come in to where I worked and would drink. They would think I was going to stop them. I wasn't going to stop them. And I would think, well, how could you? How could you? I mean, I could just see, I just knew it. So I didn't really need the steps. I'd already stopped drinking. I already had what I didn't come here for. I came here because my boss said I had to. But you gave me this. So I was happy with it. But I wanted to do a 9th step. Well, I'll skip all that. I wanted to make amends. I guess I was guilty. I just felt guilty. So I wanted to make amends for all this crap I had done, and the lamps I had broken and all that jazz. But when we come here, I'll fast forward 5 years. So I stayed sober. I've had a decent life in sobriety. I got married. I got divorced. I have had 3 children. I had 3 children sober in the hospital, got on my knees every morning. What came to me finally during a regular old AA meeting one day was that all this prosaic steel girder and all that, I say that kind of rapidly, but I mean, I really did have thinking in my brain, my intellect, that it was a sort of reasonable explanation for the genesis of life and humans and all that kind of jazz. And it came to me one day, finally during a meeting, that I didn't make it up, and I didn't read it in a book somewhere, that my brother Kevin taught it to me. My brother Kevin died in a car accident when I was 19 years old. I loved my brother. So here it is, like 10 or 12 years old, whatever it was. And I'm carrying out around his old ideas, like some people carry a flag or a T-shirt or whatever. And I was so far along in my life that I thought it was my ideas. It was his ideas. And during this meeting, it came to me, some of us have tried to hold on to our old ideas, and the result was null until we let go absolutely. That my brother Kevin would not want me to die of alcoholism, and that maybe if he had lived as long as I had, he would let go of his atheism. But in any case, it would probably be okay with him if I let go of it. And I felt this flood of permission to believe in a power greater than myself. And this is a very long chapter that we just read, 44 to 57. But I think we can boil it down to 2 sentences. We needed to ask ourselves but one short question. Do I now believe, or am I even willing to believe that there is a power greater than myself? Do I now believe, or am I even willing to believe? Now, for a long time, I had a little statue of Glinda the Good Witch from The Wizard of Oz because I loved her, and Yoda the Jedi Master because everybody else loved him. But it was really Glinda the Good Witch, and that whole Wizard of Oz story. There's no place like home, and she goes out all these places to try to find courage and heart and blah blah blah, and she winds up back right where she started from, but with a new understanding and some fancy shoes. So I got some fancy shoes, and I kept coming back. I still have them, like ruby slippers up on my shelf there. So and the Jim and Fred stories to me are pivotal. You know, in our book, it's before this, they talk about the crux. This is the crux of the matter. Knowing what I know about alcoholism, knowing that I experience the phenomenon of craving if I take one drink, and I do know it. I just know it. I've known it since that first meeting. Why would I take the desperate experiment of the first drink? It's because of that strange mental twist. It's that mental twist. The main problem the alcoholic centers in his mind. Something in here is going to say, it wasn't that bad. I didn't get fired that day. I didn't kill anybody with my car. You know what? It's because I was in my 20s. You know what? It's because Ronald Reagan was the president. That could have been if Jimmy Carter was the president. It doesn't matter. My mind will start telling me it was some reason other than I am alcoholic and cannot drink like the average temperate drinker. So my mind will start telling me these things, like it used to tell me when I was drunk. I'm more careful when I'm driving. That was one of my favorites. I am more careful when I've had a couple of drinks. I keep my eye on the center line. I look out for blue lights. I mean, these dangerous, terrible lies. So, do I now believe, or am I even willing to believe? I knew I needed something between me and that first drink, and that famous, oh, you can use a coffee mug, if you want for your higher power, or Glinda the Good Witch didn't cut it. It really didn't. I really needed a power greater than myself, which was beyond what I knew. And I have it. I have it. I mean, I do. In Big Book Step Study, I learned all this stuff building up to this. And then we came to this whole chapter is about overriding the object. And that very first night with the black guy, I went home and they'd given me this big book, this very one. This is the first chapter I read. It was like, oh, great. Now, here I've gone from this desperate bedwetting. I've now been slugged and I don't remember getting it. So I'm really upset. But within the space of 3 or 4 hours, I'm like, oh, these are people who used to be agnostics. Talk about contempt. I mean, I went from desperate to like spare me in about 4 hours, which shows how much you can rely on me. but that I did read it. I was disappointed. Oh, these people who used to be agnostics, this is some God thing. Whatever, keep coming back. The only requirement for AA membership is the desire to stop drinking. However, now I'm, but now in Big Book Step Study, I come to this place, and there's all this explanation that Bill is writing about the prejudice, about post-war disillusionment. I think that's very interesting. It's the times. Well, there's a lot of times. We have weird times now too. But these guys, most of them were guys. There were a couple women. Dismantled their objections to a power greater than themselves slowly and carefully, and repeated them to us so we would have a shot at this thing. And I also would contend that when I've come to this point, do I now believe, or am I even willing to believe? Yes, I am. I am willing to believe, famously, what you believe. Or if when people say, if you don't have a higher power, you can borrow mine. I think that's good enough. I think that is good enough to go ahead and do a third step, because when we get to the third step, I am making a decision to turn my will and my life over. It doesn't mean I've actually done it. I am making a decision to. And step 12 is having had a spiritual awakening as the result of these steps, which would suggest that at step 2, I don't have to have had a spiritual awakening as the result of these steps. I just have to say, do I now believe, or am I willing to believe? And I am. And to me, that means get on with it. Take the third step, read that third step prayer, and move on. start writing, blah, blah, blah. And I am developing a power greater than myself. And this is the miracle of healing for me. Also, that's exactly what this book is about. This book is not to tell us all these stories. This book is not necessarily to describe alcoholism to us, although it really does it very well. And I'm so great. And I'm glad there's all the drinking stuff too. I have no idea what the timing is going on here, Sherry. So, and I'm skipping around, but for me, it's just very clear that there is no spiritual, thank you, part of this program, that it is a spiritual program that solves a physical, mental, and spiritual dilemma and all others. Because now, I just got through my, I guess, 41st New Year's Eve in a row. And I've still worked in some bars over the years. I haven't the last couple of years, but I work in a hotel now. And once in a while, I'm Mary, go out and make the drinks or pour the wine or whatever. It has no effect on me. It just doesn't. But it has no effect on me because I know I'm alcoholic. But knowing that I'm alcoholic does not stop me from drinking it. That's the most important thing here. It just doesn't stop me. Only a power greater than myself stops me. And I hear a lot of things. You hear a lot of things in regular meetings and in these meetings. Like, I have a choice today. Oh my God. If I had to choose every freaking day for the last 40 years, whether I was going to drink or not, believe you me, I would have had a drink. When I really knuckled under and came to Big Brook Step Study about 5 years ago, because I thought one of my kids was dying of this disease, and he was close. He still could. So could I. So could I, truly. But I really thought he was dying. He'd been in institutions, jails, hospitals. He was out on the streets in Maine during early COVID. This is my baby. Well, I gave birth to and brought to AA meetings with me. Recovery doesn't rub off on people by bringing them to AA meetings when they're children. I'll tell you that. And any more than, well, Don't Drink and Go to Meetings is a good program if it gets you to the program. Anyway, fast forward. He's still alive. He was here on Christmas Day. Thank you, God. But that's what got me over because I was so frightened and so distraught at that point. I thought, Mary, you could drink. You could drink. You need to really knuckle down here. And my people knew it. I've always had a home group. I've always had a sponsor. I've always sponsored people. I've had to go back and mend some of my sponsorships since I really got serious in here. It took me a year and a half to write my 4th step, early COVID, did my 5th on Zoom, all that. Also early on, that line about circumstances made him willing to believe. Those were the circumstances that pushed me over the top here. Although I'm not one of those people who says, "Oh, I had a miserable 30 years in open AA," or anything like that. It wasn't miserable. I loved it, and I stayed sober, and people helped me, and I helped them, and I had a life. This is rocketing into this is a whole new dimension of Alcoholics Anonymous, I think. I heard somebody recently talk about all the capital letters in this chapter, which was kind of interesting. All these different descriptions of different higher powers and different prayer formulas, stuff like that. That was kind of interesting. So I just want to say that came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. And I'm going back to Jim and Fred again. One of them had a lousy day. He went to work at the automobile agency that he used to own, remember? So he had a little resentment going. Oh, and he had words with the boss that morning. Okay. So he had words. He was irritated. He'd go into a place he used to own, and he thinks it would be a good idea to have that if he put whiskey in the milk, that'll be fine. So he has one, doesn't feel any phenomenon of craving. So he has another one. And then he has another one, no problem. Okay, that's him. The other guy goes to Washington. He's had a great day. He's had a successful conclusion to his business. So, also now I hear a lot about triggers. It's like, triggers? What triggers? I don't care if you had a good day or a bad day. I don't care if it's a day ending in Y. I'm an alcoholic, and I have a strange mental twist that will tell me it's okay this time. The other 485 times, that was just a fluke. We can't recall with sufficient, whatever it is. We can't bring it back up drag it up, the memory of how horrible it was to make us stop drinking. I mean, who wants to do that anyway? I don't want to drag up all those horrible, humiliating, expensive, dangerous episodes I had when I was drinking. I'd rather find a power greater than myself, say so out loud to another person in this step, take the third step and get on with it, and spend the rest of my life, morning and evening, asking God to direct my thinking, especially asking that it be divorced from self-pity, dishonest, and self-seeking motives, all that jazz. And so I don't know if that's the educational variety. I mean, I've had a couple of sort of explosive. I'm going to tell you one more story. Not last winter, but the winter before, I was in Fort Lauderdale, and I was near Fort Lauderdale, and I decided to go to the airport. My brother Kevin, who was my favorite atheist, who taught me to be an atheist, and who died in a car wreck. Well, he died at the Fort Lauderdale airport. There's a road around it, and I still struggle sometimes. So I said, I want to go see if I can find the place where he died. I just know it happened at this airport. So I'm driving around. It was on the perimeter road. There's records somewhere. So I go looking, and I can't really find the right place. And of course, they've done a lot of things to airports in the last 50 years. They get bigger, and there was 9/11, so you can't go anywhere you want. Anyway, I'm driving, and I was one plate. No, this isn't it. And I finally get to one side of the airport, and there's like this open green space all of a sudden. There's like park benches and a chain link fence. And I knew he ran into the back of a garbage truck that was cleaning up trash along the airport. So I said, well, maybe this is the chain link fence. And there were two chain link fences. So maybe he was between these two, whatever. And there's these benches. You can sit and look at the airplanes take off. And people were, little igloo coolers and stuff, And all I had to do was be there, and I started to weep, and I turned on Simon and Garfunkel on the radio, and then these airplanes are coming and going, and well, then a yellow one comes around. Sherry's heard this before, maybe you haven't heard, but this airplane does this loop, and then takes off, like airplanes do, and it's yellow, and on the airplane, it's the airline name, Spirit. I am looking for my brother at this airport, and this Spirit just takes off into the sky. And I thought, I'm free. I am free of those old ideas. Free. It's okay. I can do this. I had been doing it, but that was a physical manifestation of a gradual educational process. Came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. Thank you, Kevin. I know you meant well when you were teaching me that stuff. I'm done with it. I'm going to stick with you people. So thank you. And I am going to stick with you people, if you let me. Thank you. Happy New Year.